Alright, so let's start by having a look at our character here. If we go to its stats, you can see we are currently level 90, just got there. About 2k life, a little bit on the low side. 1.2k energy shield. And we have full capped resistances. We have 7k armor applying to our physical damage and 9k armor applying to our elemental damage. Now, if we go ahead and start by having a look at our passive tree, you'll see that the passive tree is very default. The only things that I really deviated from what most people are doing, I went down here and got Primal Fury or Tribal Fury to get splash damage on our strikes, which is going to be your two main damage dealers, Lunar Assault and Shred. And this gives you a little bit more AoE clear, which I felt the Werewolf in particular lacks a little bit. And then I go and take Dimensional Weak Spot. This gives you chance to treat elemental resistance as inverted. The only thing that we're really doing to reduce elemental resistance is going and taking Turning of the Seasons for your Ascendancy. Other than that, they are at max resistances, so this is quite good for us. Another one, because I am investing a little bit more on wolves than the average build in my experience, by looking at the POE ninja and stuff, I go and take Pack Encouragement. This is going to give you 5% attack damage for each minion in your presence. Each wolf counts as its own minion, but they're a single companion. So by having, you can have up to 16, I want to say. And I believe 16, and you get the full benefits. Currently we're sitting at 12, so we are getting 60% increased attack damage when all our minions are nearby. And that's the passive tree for the most part. Everything else is very standard and very similar to what you can see if you go and look in POE Ninja. I also opted to anoint Serrated Edges. This is quite a cheap anoint and gives you a lot of damage. If you have all the money in the world, you can anoint Tribal Fury. It saves you a lot of points. However, this costs 2 isolation, and they are currently going for 300 exalts each isolation. So, very, very expensive to anoint. For our Ascendancy, as you can see, I only have 3 Ascendancies, and I'm probably sticking to 3 Ascendancies, to be honest. The first one, Turning of the Seasons, very good, gives you damage and exposure. First one I took. The second one, Reactive Growth, gives you Adapt, gives you 10% less elemental damage taken, and 10% less elemental damage taken for each type that you have an adaptation of. The reason why I don't care too much about the fourth is, and the third I got Wisdom of the Magi. This gives you Runes and Idols with extra benefits, which is a decent chunk of life, a flat life on a gear from all the runes, so that's quite nice. The reason I was saying I don't care too much about your fourth Ascendancy is that there's no real good fourth Ascendancy. You could go and take Sacred Flow, and that would give you 40 additional spirits. Realistically, you're not dropping 2, so you can never fit a 60% spirit gem with this, so I just haven't found something that is very valuable to add to your build by going here. This Avatar of Evolution could be nice, but adaptations go from being a full thing that you have for infinite duration to being a 5-second duration, and I just don't like that. I value a lot more the 10% reduction all the time rather than the 20% reduction for 5 seconds. And the Fizz converted to Elemental is good, again, but 5%, 15% total, no, it's fine, but not great. Apocalypse initially looks very promising, but when you look at Apocalypse, you can see that it's a spell. That kind of took the wind out of my sails for this particular. I tried it, it didn't feel like it was doing anything. And lastly, Druidic Champion. I was looking at this and potentially using a Crown of Ice, and with 60 Rage that was going to be 30% more spell damage, which I was hoping it would translate to attack damage, but Crown of Ice only applies to increases and not this node in particular, according to POE. So unfortunately, none of these nodes are any good. Your fourth Ascendancy, if you're going to do it, or you already have it, is going to be 3 maximum rage and 12 increased elemental damage. In my opinion, you split for the small node. That's what you do, and that's it. Now, looking at our gear. On your gear, you're gonna start with a talisman, of course, ignore the scepter is not doing anything. You are looking for flat and physical. And on the suffixes, these are actually terrible suffixes. All of them are bad. You're looking for crit, you are looking for attack speed. And we want a Magi talisman because Magi gives you the implicit for rage, and because of this node on the tree, if we get 12, which is the top end of the implicit, that's going to bring our rage all the way up to 60, and that's going to give you another 12% increase physical damage. But of course, don't break your budget for the implicit on its own. And you put the runes that give you physical damage, of course. On our helmet here, we have armor and ES. We want life, we want resist or stats that you need, and armor applies to elemental damage. Very, very, very good. Accuracy is good as well. I have accuracy on the helmet and the gloves, and accuracy allows you to not have to spend any accuracy points on the tree. Otherwise, all you take for accuracy is this. Otherwise, you might need to pad to this node. If you do, that's fine. It's not a big loss. It still gives you elemental damage. It still gives you dex, which you're going to need. So it's not a massive issue. Just keep that in mind. On your amulet, this is a good place to get stats if you need them. It's a good place to get spirit as well. You're going to need spirit on your gear, somewhere to run all the auras that I have on right now, either your chest or your amulet, and it's a very good place to get it. But yeah, life, resistance, and on the prefixes, it's quite nice to get armor or get energy shield or any offensive stat that you can possibly find on there. That would be very good as well. On your rings, you want the same thing on both. You preferably want 2 chaos resistance bases, and you want flat damage on the prefixes plus life, and resistances plus stats on the suffixes, and that's it. Very simple rings. On your body armor, this is a very good base because it gives us spirit, and this is a very high armor and evasion, or armor in ES, with armor applies to elemental damage as well, and 2 very good resists. So it is quite a nice piece. I don't need the lightning resistance, so that could be something else potentially, like chaos for example. That would be fantastic. You would have taken this, would be able to take these gloves off and put a better pair on with more life. But as it is a very, very good chess piece on its own. For your gloves, as I was saying, I use this to fix most of my chaos resists. You do need chaos res, especially if you're doing breach. There's a specific mob called It That Hates. It will absolutely one-shot you if you don't have chaos res. Even if you have like 30, it's probably still going to one-shot you. It is incredibly painful. It does so much damage, and you really need to be on the lookout for that, or just bite the bullet and cap your chaos as you should. But other than the chaos res, you really just care about flat on your gloves. It's a very good place to get flat damage, and life and armor evasion, or armor, yes, sorry. Belt, you want 2 charms. You can get away with 2 because you can get the 3rd from the upgrades in the campaign. I found this one with 3, so that was fine. This is just strength, life, and chaos res. Nothing else really matters here. And then on your boots, you obviously want movement speed. You want as much life as you can get. And then on the suffixes, whichever resistance you might need. and armor also applies to elemental damage is very good. Keep in mind, armor also applies to elemental damage, can go over 100, and that's exactly why I have more armor applying to elemental damage than my actual physical damage taken, because I currently have over 100. Yeah, flasks, I haven't even rolled these, to be completely honest. It's just a life flask and a mana flask, whatever. On your charms, I have Nascent Hope, which is expensive. It's about 70C, or 70 exalts. But it does give you two things. One, immunity to freeze, which is very good for the Architect in the Val Temple. And just in general, being freeze immune is very good. And gives you energy shield recharge when used, which is very valuable to us as well. You don't need this one. You can just get a Staunching Charm, and it does the work. This just gives you Consecrated Round on use, which gives you a little bit of regen, so that's good. And I really like a Silver Charm, so I'm not affected by slows. And that's everything for the gear. Very, very simple. I didn't mention, but obviously you want to be in werewolf form, because we're using Shred to its full capacity. Speaking of Shred, let's go over the gems right now. So for Shred, we start with Crescendo. This is going to be allow you to do your final strike twice, and everything leading up to your final strike happens a lot faster, so this is very good. Rapid attacks as well, just increase attack speed, is super valuable. One of the first things you should put on your skill. Then you have Close Combat, Elemental Armament, and I opted to put Execute here. This is going to give you a lot more damage when the enemy is on low life, but I'm not sure if this is the move or if I'm swapping this to something else. I just got to 90, so that I just unlocked it a few minutes ago. Then we have Savage Fury. Not much to say here. Prolonged duration to give you more skill effect duration, and that's it. Lunar Assault. There's a few things here. First, if you don't have Batera's Vengeance, you're on SSF. This is very cheap on trade. It's like 3 exalts. This is going to allow your damage to scale with how much rage you have when you freeze an enemy. So the more rage you have, the more additional gained as cold do you get from this gem. If you don't have this, just put Ice Bite on. It's going to give you 30%, and this scales up, to me right now, it scales up to 57%. Other than that, you get rapid attacks, of course. Deep Freeze is very good to increase the freeze duration on the enemies, particularly in bosses. And also Call 2 is here just to help clear the map. This is going to replicate your strike to 2 other enemies every 3 seconds. On our pounds, this is quite important. I opted to put a Brutus Brain. I bought this very early in the campaign. I'm not sure how expensive it is right now. It's basically the same price. It's come down a little bit. I paid 110 exalts for it. But essentially this makes so the minions that are summoned from triggering the mark cannot deal damage, but they cannot be killed. This is significant because this guarantees you to get at least 30% effect from this at all times. And then from your wolf pack, you get another 6 wolves. I could technically put another one here, and I might still do that, we'll see, to guarantee the 60%. But essentially this makes so the minions cannot be damaged and cannot die. Other than that, I have Fist of War, because this was doing quite a lot of damage for me in the campaign, but maybe it's time to swap that for something like cooldown reduction. And Mark of Siphoning for Leech, and Mark for that to be able to break armor on the enemy. In particular in bosses is where this actually becomes significant. After that, I have Bark Skin. You do not need Bark Skin. If I was going to drop one of my gems is probably this, and that makes so you don't need to use the space to get the spirit, and you have a lot more space to work with whatever spirit you can get. But this does give you a lot more armor, and is going to easily allow me to break the 10k armor while mapping, while you're getting hit. So it's quite a nice luxury gem to slot in as well. Cross slash is here. I don't use it too much. I use it more as an execute than anything else. And we have Heavy Swing, Execute, Rage Forged, and Culmination 2. Obviously make sure if you're going to use it, just to use it when you're at max values of this to get the max benefit, and obviously you want to be consuming rage, and optimally you want the enemies to be below 35% to trigger that low life effect. Our last active skill, and this is the only one that you're going to be using very often. For the most part, while playing, you're going to be using Shred, you're going to be using Luna Strike, and you're going to be using Pounce to move around, but Cross Slash and Savage Fury you're not going to use that much, only on actual bosses. Luna Blessing you absolutely should be using, and this should be the first skill that you're putting a 6 socket on if you're going to be doing that. Why is that? Well, this gives you 70% damage gain, that's called damage. That should be enough, but other than that, Moonbeam does do a lot of damage and does freeze enemies so quickly. It's really powerful, and the cooldown time gets reduced by cooldown recovery, so that's why you're using it, but also the cooldown of the skill itself also gets reduced, of the Warcry. So that is awesome. That gem works for both of them at the same time. Then we have Prolonged Duration. This is going to allow you to essentially maintain 100% uptime of this while mapping, which is very good. You do get Execute as well here, but you could potentially put something else like Magnified Area for broader effect or broader clear with your Moonbeams, but I actually think Execute does do quite a significant amount. And then we have Elemental Armaments, of course. For the last two auras, we have Wolfpack with Meat Shield, Hulking Minions, Elemental Army, and I have Rapid Attacks here, but Rapid Attacks is not very important. We just want to make them survive as much as possible because of the buffs that we're getting from the wolves themselves. And lastly, Herald of Ice. Herald of Ice is going to help you a lot in your clear. This is probably the first aura that you should slot in, and this is very impactful in your clear in particular. Cold Atonement, of course. We have Frozen Spite. Frozen Spite is actually going to generate ice crystals whenever you kill things that are frozen. So this is quite nice. We have Magnified Area, and finally Cold Master. And that's everything for the character as is right now, I believe. If you have any questions, do let me know. At this point, the only thing this character is missing is to kill the Arbiter, but it can absolutely do it. Once I do that, I'm probably going to swap, and I'm going to play. I think it's also a Druid. I'm probably going to be playing something with the new Vine plants and the Thunderstorm. I don't know if it's a Druid. It could potentially be a Blood Mage as well. I'll see what comes out of that. But for now, that's everything from me. Thank you so much for checking the video. Please subscribe if it was helpful and if you enjoy it. I'll catch you all later. Bye bye.